Ladies and gentlemen out there, welcome to a brand new news roundup video, and we've got quite a few topics to tackle. Starting with, did Snyder actually maybe acknowledge that the Snyderverse is over? Which as a result has got the Restore the Snyderverse fandom wondering if Snyder could have maybe just possibly meant this in any other way. Also, in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Zack Snyder entertains what DC project he would actually do if he ever did go back to DC. Also, we have some tidbits to go over involving Gunn and future casting for Superman Legacy, and for all I know, as I keep saying every news video recently, it'd be my luck if a casting did happen to be announced as I'm posting this video. And speaking of tidbits, we have some teasers for a certain character returning to Matt Reeves' Batverse, as well as some filming updates for The Penguin and Netflix's The Sandman. And lastly, in this video, we're going to have a look at Amazon Prime's new Fallout series, which I absolutely have to dive into. But let's get into the stories in today's video. Let me know your thoughts on each one of them. Just to let you know, each topic in this video is timestamped. If you hover over the video bar or go in the video description down below, you'll see them displayed there. So let's start off with what is causing this confuffle, I guess you would say, with regards to the end of the Snyderverse. Now, I just want to say, before anyone gets offended, what I'm about to say is my interpretation. It is my perspective. I feel like I have to say that because I feel like whenever I talk about Restore the Snyderverse, I upset someone, even though I am a fan of the Snyderverse and the Snyder Cut and everything like that. But I've still got my own perspective on the future. And it seems as though Zack Snyder and what is causing this confusing situation has weighed in on this himself through a reply on Vero. And this all ties into the Hollywood Reporter interview that Zack Snyder did, of which I will read out a part of that as well. Because again, it's all tied up. So what are you talking about, Boba? I haven't heard about this. What is going on? So here we have a post by Jacob Torres on Vero. I don't use this app, really. And he's linking a post from South Cali Guy 87, basically like a retweet on X/Twitter, where he basically captions it saying, "Hey, at Zack Snyder," so his official Vero account, which, as you guys know, Snyder likes to use quite a bit. "What do you mean by this?" And the link or the somewhat retweet on Vero here that Jacob does of South Cali Guy's post is of a screenshot saying Zack Snyder confirms the Snyderverse is over. Let's talk about this news, and it's some Twitter account called Our Movie News, basically covering, and I looked at the video, they're covering the Hollywood Reporter interview with Snyder and this specific paragraph that Snyder says. And again, I'll read that out in a second. Now, the big news surrounding this is that if you click on the comments to Jacob's repost here, asking Snyder, "Hey, what do you mean by this?" he replies to this guy, "That's true. That's true." So he's looking at that page, and there's a screenshot from Twitter, just to go through it once more, saying Zack Snyder confirms the Snyderverse is over. And he replies to this guy asking him about it, "That's true." Now, as a result, some fans are saying, well, I don't know about that. I don't think the Snyderverse is over, because obviously we're all about Restore the Snyderverse. And to be fair, if you click on the repost that Jacob tagged Snyder in, and that is South Cali Guy 87's post, the original post that was quoted says, "Hey, Zack Snyder, when did you confirm that the Snyderverse was dead? Lol, did I miss something?" And then below that he says, "As long as there are fans wanting to see it completed, the Snyderverse lives. Hashtag sell the Snyderverse to Netflix." And now some people are thinking, if you're still with me here, this is where in all the confusion lies for a lot of hardcore fans out there, that maybe Snyder replying to Jacob on the repost saying "that's true" is really just acknowledging the original post from South Cali Guy on the second line saying, "As long as there are fans waiting to see it completed, the Snyderverse lives." Now, look, if I'm just going to be candid here, and this is like with absolutely no bias, this is just the way I see it. Yes, I acknowledge that if you click on the original post that Jacob Torres quoted here on Vero and tagged Snyder in, the caption of that post does say that the Snyderverse lives, and as long as fans are waiting to see it completed, maybe there's something there in the future. Now, the thing in your face with this post is that, you know, Zack Snyder confirms the Snyderverse is over. It's been a heck of a journey. All of that is the part that's in your face. So you would assume that he's responding to that bit. But again, people are kind of wanting to dig a bit further into that, being like, oh, well, technically, Zack could have been responding to the second paragraph line, if you will, of the original reposted post. And that could still mean that the Snyderverse is alive and he was actually saying that's true to that. But I don't know, man. I do think, from my perspective, that is reaching, especially when you actually go to the source of what this video that is being reposted and being brought to Zack Snyder's attention is even about. So let's go read that out. So in this interview with The Hollywood Reporter, I recommend checking it out. There's quite a bit to read through here, but one of the final paragraphs says as follows. And again, this is what the video was about in that screenshot that was brought to Snyder's attention. But Snyder says that chapter of his life is now closed, and it would be difficult to coax him into reopen it. If his buddy Gunn called and invited him back to DC, he might consider doing a Dark Knight Returns adaptation, but only a true representation of the graphic novel. So this is still in their interview with him, but they're somewhat summarizing it. So just initially there, that's interesting. Snyder would come back to DC, maybe one day, if he was going to do a project, it would be low-key, funnily enough, a Dark Knight Returns. And the funnily enough about that is, all while Ben Affleck's Batman wasn't quite literally the Dark Knight Returns adaptation of that story with Carrie Kelly and everything there was heavy influences from the Batsuit to even the fat-off riot tank that we actually did get to see in the end. So again, I'm just going to rub it in one more time. A lot of people out there are trying to say that his response is to that original post's second line of, as long as there are fans wanting to see it completed, the Snyderverse lives on. I think that is really reaching down the bag, because the blatant in-your-face thing that Snyder would be seeing is the very thing quoted in front of his face. What he said in The Hollywood Reporter, what is being advertised in that screenshot, and that is true. So I wouldn't advise personally looking at it as him being like, oh yeah, that second line, by the way, that's what I'm referring to in terms of what is true. But again, I do understand it from the perspective of those hardcore fans, because they are longing and desiring something so deeply and so much that I guess seeing something like this, if there's anything else that they can maybe interpret Snyder saying that's true to, even if, to me, it really doesn't seem like it's the case, they'll be like, well, technically it could be this. I don't know if this is Snyder's attempt to try and maybe put all of that to rest. Maybe he's going to have to clarify this, because I kind of feel bad in the sense that if this was his first acknowledgement of the Snyderverse, basically, it's true, it's kind of over. I mean, I'm moving on kind of thing, as per what is referenced in the Hollywood Reporter article, that he still needs to clarify it. I don't think it needs to be clarified. And just in general, my final take on this anyways, I'm just going to be saying what I've said before. I think, they're not going to bring back a whole cinematic universe level story on top of while building and really trying to make the optics cleaner and put the past behind them with that of a new cinematic universe, the DCU, with a whole new, well, not a whole new, if you know what I mean, cast, but for the most part, obviously like a new Superman, a new Justice League, from what we're hearing. It just does feel like the past is behind us, but at the end of the day, I understand that people just really might completely disagree with me there, and that there is some kind of path forward that they could have seen in terms of restoring it. But, in my take, Zack Snyder is acknowledging that this is true. We're going into the next chapter of his life. He's interested in whole new projects now with Rebel Moon and what's going on there, as the Hollywood Reporter are describing it. But Snyder says that chapter of his life is now closed. What do you guys think? I mean, do you agree with me that it's been obvious for a long time that after, obviously, it was hard enough to get the Snyder Cut out, but that's one thing. But, greenlighting future movies, bringing all those actors back, running a old cinematic universe alongside the birth of a new one while trying to sort out the optics for DC and put the DCEU behind them. Do you think that there was actually ever any chance for that? And in somewhat related news to this, we have Gunn over on Threads replying to this post from the Flash Film News, in where they said, Zack Snyder said he called James Gunn, and this was a part of the article as well, and this was like a nice thing to hear. Wish all the best for him. I told him I wanted it to work. So that's what Snyder said in the Hollywood Reporter. Twitter about Gunn's new DCU. I wish the best for him. I told him I wanted it to work. Zack also said if Gunn would invite him back to DC, and that's the whole Dark Knight Returns idea, he would be interested in doing like a true adaptation. And James Gunn quoted this by saying, like I said many months ago when I shared that he did this, Zack is a good guy. I think there's a couple of reasons why Gunn posted this, because I guess it's relevant news, because there's a whole bloody Hollywood Reporter article about Snyder, so he could have just been like, yeah, like I said months ago, Zack's a good guy. Maybe he also felt the need to say that again because a lot of people were saying Snyder wouldn't say that. James, you're making it up, because he claimed a few months ago with what he's referring to here that he was on the phone to Snyder and that he had talked to him. He didn't really divulge what they had spoken about properly, other than just saying, yeah, roughly Zack is a good guy, this, that, and the other. But a lot of fans were like, haha, Gunn, as if you hate Snyder, this, that, and the other. And then lo and behold, this article comes out. And obviously, not every Restore the Snyderverse fan, I need to make this clear, isn't one of those people going crazy online or saying, Gunn, I hate you, or Gunn, Snyder hates you, or you hate Snyder. But there were a lot of people saying that he was lying, and then lo and behold, this article comes out, and Zack Snyder says, I wish the best for him, I told him I wanted it to work. So James Gunn wasn't lying a few months ago when he said that. In a tidbit update with regards to James Gunn, the DCU, Superman Legacy, as you guys know, this channel had quite a few news roundups last week, and that's because of after the strikes were over, we're getting little bits of updates here and now. Nicholas Hoult cast as Lex Luthor, the Engineer. We also have Jimmy Olsen. The list just kept going on, and we intended it, or we expected it rather, for it to go on, because we do have some roles that we're expecting to be casted, such as Jonathan and Martha Kent. And some of us were speculating maybe that would happen this week, but we did have a reply a few days ago, and again, this is going to be funny if by the time I upload this video, there is another announcement, but somebody said, how long will it take to get any update about Superman Legacy? And James Gunn said a few days ago now, this week wasn't enough, so I don't know if that means, considering when I'm uploading this, it's probably Thursday when you're seeing this, that maybe we won't get any more castings for Superman Legacy this week, or maybe next week, or maybe we will next week, or maybe we will tomorrow. I don't know. But my gut is telling me, him saying this week wasn't enough with regards to last week, I don't know if we're going to get another one maybe anytime soon. Maybe the confirmation of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, because that's something to bear in mind, all while the major trades did say that Hoult was cast as Superman Legacy's Lex Luthor. It's likely that the deal wasn't signed properly, even though it's pretty much a done deal, because Gunn hasn't acknowledged that. He acknowledged Jimmy Olsen and some other castings, but he still, and that was after the trades reported Nicholas Hoult as Luthor. So I think maybe the next official one acknowledged by Gunn will be Lex Luthor, and then likely Jonathan and Martha Kent. Hopefully Jonathan. For those of you who know, I want Jonathan in the movie. Perry White, etc., etc. There's still a couple of castings to go, but I think maybe they might want to long it out just a little bit, and they don't have to drop all the castings week after week after week after week. So don't be surprised, just in case, if Superman Legacy castings are, drip fed to us a little bit more slowly from here on out. But I could be wrong about that. All right, so in other news, with regards to a character returning in Matt Reeves' Batverse, well, get yourself ready, ladies and gentlemen. The character of whom has teased their return is none other than Chief of Police Mackenzie Bok. So thanks to an interview with Con O'Neill with comicbook.com, he said, you'll see Bok in one form or another, O'Neill teased. Soonish, he added. That's all I'm allowed to say, really. So this has to be for the Penguin, and given how much that is rooted in crime and the dark corners of Gotham City, and that he is the chief of police, I guess I'll expect to see him pop up in that. I don't know how, though. I mean, I know it may seem obvious. Hey, crime. Hey, chief of police. But are we going to have, Oz have a meeting with him? Or are we just going to have maybe perspectives from the GCPD or Kenzie Bok as chief of police, looking at the lawlessness and looting as Robert Pattinson's Batman spoke about in the ending monologue of the movie with regards to the flooding and how it's going to capitalize on all of this further crime in the city and the war between different groups such as the Falcones and the Maronis, and obviously Penguin, slipping and sliding above both of those crime families to come out on top. I don't know, but it could be pretty cool to get the GCPD's perspective. I know what to expect from the Penguin, but there could be all kinds of little little things like this that I didn't necessarily think about popping up. And I have to admit, the chief of police, Kenzie Bok, maybe appearing in Penguin, I didn't really think about too much. So let me know if you have any ideas of how he could actually be involved. Do you think he could also be corrupt at a certain point? Maybe Oz will want to try and maybe get some control over him. I don't know, especially considering that Commissioner Pete Savage was pretty corrupt and he bit the dust as a result of it. So we're going to have to wait and see. Speaking of the Penguin as well, we can't forget how it was set to resume filming November 27th. So right now that should be happening, and hopefully they can get an episode or two, or maybe give or take, before the holiday break. But as you guys know, as per what I referenced in a recent DC News Roundup video, I'm hoping we do get to see a little bit of footage maybe over the next couple of months, because we do know that at the Max schedule or slate thing for 2024, some press did get to see something to do with the Penguin, and they described Sophia Falcone as this, crazy villain or whatever in the series. So I really hope we do get a taste of whatever they saw. But, we're slowly but surely getting back into the swing of things, and it's great to know that Penguin is filming right now, and they're getting some more episodes in the can. Speaking of some filming tidbits, as for the Sandman has swept back into production for new episodes. Again, everything somewhat getting back to normal. We have a new photo here of Dream and Desire for season 2, in a very similar callback to one of the final scenes of season 1. And I keep talking about seasons, but they're not really referencing season 2 as season 2 because of the somewhat non-linear storytelling of the Sandman in the graphic novels, the source material. They're kind of just saying like new episodes of the Sandman on Netflix. And Neil Gaiman wrote a little letter to fans with regards to an anniversary of the first Sandman comic coming out, saying at the very end that this week we officially restart production on the next sequence of stories of the Sandman for Netflix. Genius showrunner Alan Heinberg and the countless people in front of and behind the camera are building something endlessly special. I like what you did there, Neil. And bringing these stories to life in a way that would once have been unimaginable. A journey is beginning that will take us from Destiny's Garden to hell, from the heart of the dreaming to ancient Greece and revolutionary France. And those of you who have read the source material and roughly know some of the storylines there, you'll know what those places reference. And I can't wait for the ancient Greece one, and especially revolutionary France. I mean, all of it, to be honest. And hell. Going back to hell. And from there to places even I cannot quite imagine on the screen. I will be patient. Good things are coming. So Sandman fans, rally together. Everything is back in motion. I can't wait. As soon as we hear anything extra about all of this, I will be doing a dedicated update video. But until then, watch this space. So for the last thing I wanted to touch on in today's video, because I do plan on covering this series on the channel, and that is the new Fallout series coming to Amazon Prime. And we've had Vanity Fair do a really in-depth piece on the show. They've given us new photos that look really, really awesome. I do recommend checking out the whole thing because, again, it goes super in-depth. But I did want to cover a couple of things here. So starting off at the beginning, they say after the incendiary mushroom clouds, the story flashes forward 219 years. How did humanity fare over those blighted 2 centuries? Lucy, one of the lead characters, played by Yellow Jacket star Ella Purnell, has no clue. She has lived her entire life inside a subterranean vault where every need and want has been satisfied while generations and generations await the day when it is safe to surface. And we see her here in Vanity Fair's first look coming out of Vault 33. We even see her in the vault there with her father, who is the overseer. Now, honestly, I could blabber about this forever because, like, growing up, guys, I mean, any gamers here who have made it to this part of the video, let me know how you feel as well. Like, I was in high school when I was playing, like, Oblivion Game of the Year Edition. Then I experienced Fallout 3. Then there was Fallout New Vegas, where you got to explore the Mojave Wasteland, whereas in Fallout 3, it was the Capitol Wasteland. And now we're getting something live action. And the reason why I'm so excited about this, although I was also a bit apprehensive because a lot of people like to bring up Halo, but even though I'm going on a bit of a tangent now, the reason why I'm not as concerned about Fallout is because Prime, for the most part, does put out some series that a lot of people like. Having said that, you got the Rings of Power, which people really don't like the adaptation of there, and this is my kind of point with adaptations. But a lot of people were like, but what about Halo? The thing about the showrunners there is they admitted that they didn't really play the games, they didn't really care so much for that. They just kind of wanted to take that Halo aesthetic and kind of tread new ground with it, right, into this new innovative adaptation that they did. But that obviously pissed a lot of people off. Now, what we have here throughout this whole Vanity Fair piece is a lot of detail that really does ring true to the passion of what makes Fallout Fallout. You have Todd Howard even talking in this Vanity Fair piece. You have them going on about the description of the world and the various characters. Everything they're saying, as a Fallout fan myself, like a very big Fallout fan, does very much so tick all of the boxes so far. And what puts the cherry on the cake for me is Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy. Now, I know a lot of people like to kind of maybe go back on the later seasons of Westworld, but a lot of people really do like Westworld Season 1. Now, I personally enjoyed Westworld Season 2, 3, and as it went on. Again, I covered it on the channel, and I loved doing that. But I'm very glad that those guys are tackling this Fallout show, because their somewhat forte, just like Westworld, is somewhat exploring that whole concept and different perspectives on humanity, the different ways of portraying that. And as they go on to say here in the Vanity Fair piece, when a crisis forces Lucy to venture above on a rescue mission, and as you guys know, normally at the beginning of Fallout games, you leave the vault, and this is what Lucy is doing here. She finds that the planet above remains a hellscape crawling with giant insects, voracious mutant animal abominations, and a human population of sun-baked miscreants who make the manners, morals, and hygiene of the gunslinging Old West look like Downton Abbey. And this is where they go and say, the games are about the culture of division and the haves and have-nots that, unfortunately, have only gotten more and more acute in this country and around the world over the last decade, Nolan tells Vanity Fair. So many of us have naive ideas, even now, about everyone else's experiences. And it's one of the things I love about America. It's this giant manic collection of different experiences, different points of view. Desperation only exacerbates those fissures and fallout, as Purnell's do-gooder soon discovers. And that's true, right? Because for those of you who don't know that well, in Fallout, when the bombs dropped in 2077, some of humanity went into these giant underground vaults, right? And fun fact, a lot of these vaults, I don't think all of them, but a lot of them had experiments going on in them, and some of those, let's just say, get pretty messed up, but also pretty funny. That's the thing about Fallout's world. It can be dark, very post-apocalyptic, but also comedic, satirical, all of that good stuff, and also these kind of larger comparisons as well. And you as the player often find yourself going out of that vault, which obviously your family has somewhat lived a couple of generations in, and you go out into this world and where it's obviously post-apocalyptic. There's mutated insects to animals. There's people who have lived a couple of 100 years, and they're known as ghouls. There's feral ghouls who have lost all sense of themselves, and they're literally kind of like undead zombies. But there are people of whom have somewhat lived through this radiation a very, very long time and still have their sense of self, if you will. And naturally, we do get one of the main characters teased here, known as the sinister bounty hunter, known as the Ghoul, played by Walton Goggins. Having existed for hundreds of years, the show occasionally flashes back to the human being he once was, a father and a husband named Cooper Howard, and I love the idea of that. We're also going to see in this Fallout show quite a bit of pre-war stuff, which, you know, we don't get a lot of in the games. Like, in Fallout 4, we had ourselves running into the vault at the beginning, but now we're actually going to see certain scenes in the pre-war world. And also, another thing that's awesome about Fallout, and I hope some of you know what I'm talking about here, is the aesthetic of it. It's very retro-futuristic. It's still very, like, 1950s radio, kind of nuclear family, yet you also have, like, a rocket-esque fueled car and Mr. Handy robots doing your garden hedge trimming thing, but they're far more sophisticated than even any technology that I mean, technically we probably can recreate something like that now, but you get my point. That was like an everyday thing for a family back then. So guys, if you couldn't tell already, I am so in love with some of these first looks that we're getting. Another huge factor of this is the Brotherhood of Steel. That may be a very recognizable figure to some of you who are somewhat familiar with Fallout, but maybe not so in depth into it or as much of a fan as I am. And the armor they've got here for the Brotherhood of Steel members is fantastic. And these two characters here are another two important characters in the show. As Vanity Fair go on to say, as the show progresses, Lucy's journey intersects with two other lead characters who are new to the universe. One of them is a wannabe soldier, Maximus, who grew up above ground, but like Lucy, was also raised in a cloistered family of sorts, a brutal collective of warriors called the Brotherhood of Steel. And as they go on to describe here, just in case you're a bit unfamiliar, it's a little bit of a Knights Templar. It's this kind of weird fusion. In the absence of a federal government, you just had all of this military hardware lying around. Who would get it, and how would they maintain control of it? The answer is the Brotherhood, which Nolan describes as being fueled by a mutated version of patriotism, religion, loyalty, and fraternity. And they are a huge part of the games. So with Maximus's character here, when he was somewhat sheltered like Lucy, albeit above ground, he was within that of the family of the Brotherhood, who have a lot of resources, arguably live fairly comfortably above ground in the post-apocalyptic world. I mean, look at how many resources they have. You can see that in some of these photos. Overall, guys, this looks great. I'm so excited to see it as a Fallout fan. I imagine that we're going to get a trailer, a teaser trailer in maybe the next month or so, considering it is coming out in April. So maybe we'll get a teaser in December, then an official trailer in the new year, ramping up to the release, but I could be off about that. We know that Jonathan Nolan has directed the first 3 episodes. Some other bonus tidbits here are that the Vault Boy not only appears in the show, I mean, a lot of you, even if you're not a Fallout fan, should recognize the Vault Boy, but not only that, the imagery even gets an origin story, which we won't spoil here. That was something that they came up with that's just really smart, Todd Howard says. So very intrigued about that. Also, another interesting aspect is that the fans of the games should know that everything in the series is officially part of Fallout lore, and Bethesda was careful to make sure the scripts could coexist with previous storylines from gaming titles. So this is literally canon to the Fallout video games. So I'm going to shut up now. There's a lot more details I might go over in a whole separate video. So let me know if you want to see that. Let me know if you want to see me cover this on the channel. And of course, any of your thoughts on all of the previous stories that we talked about in today's video. But other than that, guys, I'm just going to ask you to help me out on the channel. Leave a like on this video, especially, seriously, if you got this far, why not leave that like? Even if you're on your phone right now or even on your TV, get the remote, hit the like button. Thank you so much. Also check to see if you're subscribed. I know that sounds daft, but I just get like validated every time I say that because I get a comment from one of you guys saying, I actually checked to see if I was subscribed. I thought I was. Turns out I wasn't. Shout out to all of the members on the channel that should be appearing on screen right now. But I think that is absolutely everything, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my past couple of videos if you haven't done so already. For those of the Doom Patrol fans out there, I finally watched the final 6 episodes and I released that review. So if you've been looking for that for the past several weeks, it is now up on the channel. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.